that beautiful flower placement. We are on to our next round. It is the Indiana Hoosiers head coach Steve Aird, along with Cameron Hayworth, their setter, and the defensive specialist Paula Sarame. This is a team that was tied for 11 in the Big Ten last year. Overall 10-22. And Steve, you can open things up with an opening statement, and then we'll open up to questions.
How we doing? Good. Good to see y'all. Hi, Lee. First and foremost, just wanted to say thank you to the conference for putting this on. I think it's been incredible so far during the day for us to spend some time here and get to know this building. I've been in and around the Big Ten for 20 years. I've never been to this facility. Pretty impressive, incredible people. I'm going to start with a story because I just think it's time for a story. This is the first time since 1991 that the Big Ten is starting a season without Russ Rose of Penn State, who's my mentor and second father. So we had a rule when we were on the road all the time, and I was lucky to be on staff there for a long time, that he had a no-tie rule. So when we got on the bus and the bus drivers were all formal, he'd say, hey man, there's no ties allowed. So for me, rocking the no tie was an homage to my mentor, and hopefully he's enjoying a cigar and some sun down in Florida, but we miss him desperately. Also wanted to say thank you to Indiana, the administration, Scott Dolson, Maddie White, Jeremy Gray, and the Women's Excellence Initiative. We were in Europe in May due to some incredible alums and people giving back so that we would have the opportunity to compete internationally and play against some unbelievable teams. So we've had a huge spring, fantastic development for the group, and certainly for the chance to get to travel internationally. Coming off of the pandemic, the fact that we were able to take the group international and play some unbelievable volleyball. We flew into Prague and out of Milan, and certainly had opportunities to bond. And then I think the girls have had a huge summer. Again, I'm sure Coach Cook and company will talk about our desire to have access to the players in the summer. We can't. It's a challenge coming in with 17 days, and we got to get ready to go. We're awfully jealous of football, men's and women's basketball, that get time to spend together. And I know the players, we've talked about this, just the opportunity to spend time together in the summer would be awesome to be able to train. But nevertheless, excited to go into the season. I think in my first couple years at IU, we had a lot of really nice victories. We were kind of climbing. We had beaten Kentucky at Kentucky and picked off some, we'd swept Ohio State and beaten Michigan, and we were kind of climbing, and brought in a freshman group of 8 players that went straight into the pandemic. Certainly 2021, we were young. We had some issues trying to figure some stuff out, and we got to the other side of that, and now we're just excited, just super excited about the season. I think the group is really excited. I think the team is really excited, and very much getting ready to go as we start the preseason here in a few days.
Reminder those of you on the Zoom call that if you want to ask a question, please put it in the chat. We'll ask it during the course of the press conference. Start with Lee here in the room.
Lee Feinswell from volleyballmag.com. It's for Paula and Cameron. Considering where the program is and all the things that Steve set me up nice with the softball, but can you talk about that international trip and what it did, and I assume much needed, did for your teams?
I think it just allowed us to gel. We spent a lot of time together traveling on the bus, exploring cities. We got to branch out and hang out with different people that we wouldn't normally hang out with, and I think it brought us a lot closer.
I think that as a teammate aspect, but also volleyball-wise, we had 2 weeks that a lot of programs do not have. We were able to train with the coaches, and I think that was a lot of eye-opening for a lot of us, and just we grew so much as a program and individually, getting to work for the individual skills that we don't really get to do that a lot during the summer.
Were there any particular moments or any particular incidents on the trip that really stuck out for you in terms of the growth of the team, besides just the fun thing you thought of, not that?
Well, the last day we got to go to Lake Como and kind of explore for the day, and then almost the whole team, we rented a boat and just got to hang out and enjoy the time there without having to worry about practices or games or anything that day. We just kind of got to enjoy our time there.
Yeah, I think the overall experience was incredible. We spent so much time together as a team. We hung out with people that we don't usually hang out with, and just opened up our eyes to a lot of different cultures, and we got to explore all those things together, which was super cool.
Yes.
Dennis Punzel, Wisconsin State Journal. Steve, you've experienced this league from the top at Penn State. You've experience now for a couple other programs, trying to work your way up that ladder. What have you learned from trying to build a program, and how can you put that to use as you've gone on over the years?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I was lucky when I left Penn State after we won the title in 2013 to go to a Maryland program that was dead last in the ACC, and 4 years later, you know, we had beaten USC and beaten Purdue, and we were kind of right on the bubble of the tournament. And for me, the Indiana job was just an opportunity to go to a place and really sink some roots in and be there for a while. I've got a young family, 11, 9, and 6, and that spent a lot of time with the girls on the trip, which was a blast. You know, I thought we were on track, to be honest with you, and I felt really good about the ascent of the program. And not to use the pandemic as, you know, the pandemic had real life consequences. We've lost people, and you know, Kendall Bierman, a former player of ours, lost her father in it. So, I mean, we take that seriously. But I brought in 8 freshmen into a year where we didn't get to see their faces for about 6 months. And then we started our first match when we played during that 21 season against Nebraska, starting 4 freshmen. So we were just young. I think 2021 as a whole was just a young developmental year. We have a lot of young players that we have a lot of faith in going forward that have really developed. And the best thing I can tell you is just that it's baking. It's not microwaving. You know, this is a program that over 50 years, they've had 1 All-American. They had an unbelievable year in 2010, but it's going to take time. And, you know, I think it's macro patience, micro hairs on fire, you know, if I had any. And the way we work, man, we just work hard every single day, and we try to keep things in perspective and try to get 1% better. And it's an impossibly difficult conference to do that in, but I'm wired for that challenge. And, you know, I could have stayed at Penn State a long time with Russ, and I wanted the challenge of Maryland, and then after building Maryland up to be ready to roll, I wanted another challenge. So I just think it's how I'm wired. It's in my DNA, and I'm excited about the challenge.
Other questions here in the room?
Coach, you mentioned the class of 8 that came in a couple of years ago too. This year you only have 2, and they're both international students. What are the challenges of bringing in a smaller class, but both international, who haven't experienced volleyball on the United States?
It's a great question, and it speaks to, I think, a good number of the players in the program now that have developed and are just ready to compete. Candela is an interesting prospect. She's the young lady out of Spain, and she was actually on the tour with us, so she got to play internationally, and she was kind of plug and play. She was ready to go, very international, a lot of experience, incredibly easy to be around, fun kid. And Melissa was a late addition, but she's almost 6'5" and left-handed, and was playing in Fenerbahce, which is one of the best clubs in the world. And you know, we're excited to get them in the gym and to see what they can bring to the table. But they're definitely additions. I think we felt great about our lineup going into it. Candela was a bonus, and Melissa's another bonus. So we're young still. I mean, a lot of the core, whether it's Maddie Saris or Morgan Geddes or these 2 international players, we're still young, but experienced in a way that we haven't been in quite some time.
Lee.
It's the international thing I wanted to ask you about. So you have the most international players, even though Puerto Ricans are American, but still do you count as international?
Do I count because I'm Canadian? Does that work?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
There we go.
Absolutely. The Big Ten and volleyball world now have a deal where you're going to be televised internationally. What does that mean for a program like yours that has recruited more international players than most anybody else in the Big Ten, and then for the league in general?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was fortunate. I've got some great connections in Canada, and we have 2 Canadian players. But I just know, as someone who grew up in Toronto and southwestern Ontario, the number of people that I hear from that watch and consume the Big Ten Network and women's volleyball back home is huge. It's been problematic internationally to see it. And so this is unbelievable news for everyone involved. We're really excited about that. And I just think it speaks to, an event like this and what we're doing speaks to how the game is growing. I think it'll matter a great deal. You know, I think this is another opportunity to talk about the men's game, you know, and we're adding UCLA and USC. I think there's a space for men's volleyball in the Big Ten in time, and I'm hugely excited as a former men's player and being a Penn State guy who was there when there was a men's and women's program. I just would love to see, you know, in time the conference take a good look at it, and certainly understand that it was really invaluable for me as a student athlete to be in that kind of culture where both programs were trying to win titles. So I think all of this stuff, Lee, is unbelievable. We're really excited and grateful, and and I think that Melissa's parents in Istanbul and Candela's parents in Madrid are going to be able to consume some unbelievable volleyball from the United States.
Do you think it impacts recruiting, not only for you, but league-wide?
I think it has to. And I still think, I know there's some great pro leagues and some fantastic players, but we tell people all the time, this is one of the best leagues for 18 to 22-year-old women in the world. And hopefully showcasing some of the international flavor will only help it grow.
Matt Brown, Extra Points. I have a question here for Paula and Cameron. We've seen NIL opportunities for women's volleyball athletes grow significantly over the past several months, and I was wondering if maybe you could tell us a little bit about how either individually or as a team, NIL has changed for you over the last several months, because clearly what that world looks like now is very different from where it was last summer.
Let's start with Paul on that.
Yeah, of course. I think it has tremendously impacted the world of student athletes. I think we've gotten a lot of opportunities that we couldn't take opportunities from before. The whole thing just opens up a lot of business opportunities for those that don't want to continue volleyball in the future. I personally have gotten several deals, not necessarily huge ones, but some that I've taken opportunity of. Cam, if you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I got one through Indiana University actually that works with charities in Bloomington. And so that's been really cool to be a part of, just to kind of see the community grow around that. But yeah, just a few here and there, small ones. And I think other people on our team are starting to get more into them.
Have you noticed that has it been easier to have those kind of conversations now than it was last summer, or have you two not really noticed a change on that front?
I think before this whole NIL thing, I would get like DMs on Instagram like, hey, I would love to collab, and I was like, sorry, like I can't. Right. But now I get to like answer those and have more communication and open up a lot more doors to that side of the business.
I think we're a lot more well-informed on this too now, so we can kind of understand how to build these relationships with businesses.
Yeah, I think a lot of the credit too comes back to the school. I think Indiana's done an unbelievable job of teeing up our young athletes, understanding the logistics and the marketing side of it. As a coach, you can't really be that involved, which I don't like, because I love the entrepreneurial world. I'd love to be able to help and sit and talk, but we're just so well equipped at IU, and these young women have opportunities with not only the Altiuses of the world and the people they can reach, but the administration has been unbelievable in terms of helping them out.
Thank you very much.
Other questions here in the room? Go ahead, Pete.
Sure, Peter Ferry, Big Ten Plus. When you have such a international team, as one may say, how do you help integrate them into campus life and cultural life in your college?
That's a great question, and one that I think I'll be more well equipped specifically after the preseason and this semester, specifically with Candela from Spain and Melissa from Turkey. Paula was interesting, as Lee pointed out. She played for the Puerto Rican national team and was at Florida before she came to us. The Canadian kids, the culture difference, although unique, is not terribly different. And whether they go to school in Toronto or they go to school in Indiana, it's pretty similar. My personal adjustment from playing with the national team in Canada and then going to Penn State was, it's a lot of the, your influence in Southwestern Ontario is a lot of the American influence. It's the NFL, and you grow up in that kind of world. So, but I will say that the team, and I think you guys can agree, Candela, her language skills are good. They're both straight A students. I thought that Candela specifically fit in. You might speak to that.
Candela, she came into the foreign trip with us, and she was super easy to connect with. We all got along super well with her. Obviously, sometimes there is a little bit of a language barrier, but I'm always there to help her. My first language is Spanish, so I'm super easy to connect with her too. So I think having those little connections here and there will help us as a team in general to be able to succeed on the court.
Reminder those folks who are on the Zoom, if you have a question, just put it in the chat. We'll ask it here in the press conference. Other questions here in the room?
One other one, and I'd love to hear all three of your perspective on this. You alluded to it earlier, Steve. What do the three of you think about the Big Ten now suddenly getting much bigger, both in terms of the quality of play and what that means for travel and everything else that comes with this huge change?
Did you guys start?
I think it's I think recruiting-wise for the coaches, it will be very, very different. I think a lot of the girls from California and stuff will want to stay home more, and because now they get to play the best teams in the league and get to stay home for that, so they get to travel a lot more. But I think the Big Ten in general is already is the best conference for volleyball, and I think it's going to be even better now. So I think it changes a lot of things, but
Yeah, I'm all for more competition.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to have all these great teams join the best conference. So I think it'll be really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm wired kind of in the world of business, and I just think it's so brilliantly. I couldn't believe, as someone who's been in the conference for 20 years, that you didn't get a sniff of it. And then when it happened, I was blown away. And just with the TV markets and the opportunity for branding, and yeah, there'll be some logistical issues. But if you're talking about providing the very, very best for student athletes in the conference, and not only all the resources and facilities, but the opportunity to compete against the best, it's another reason why the Big Ten's the Big Ten. You know, after the Maryland build, I had a lot of opportunities to go to a lot of different places, and I'm a Big Ten guy. I love the conference. I love everything it stands for, and I think it's another great thing. And they are great teams, but we're used to playing great teams. Like Cameron said, I think if you're in the conference, if you're scared to compete, wrong conference for you. So we're okay with it.
I think every match you play in the Big Ten is like a national championship match. So adding more teams that can help with that obviously is never a bad idea.
Erin Sorensen, Hill Varsity. Actually, I want to expand upon that. You're saying that the Big Ten's already like playing a national championship team every week, but when you think about adding USC, UCLA, I think at first a lot of people kind of focused on, you know, what it would mean for football and different things. But we're here talking about volleyball. This is the inaugural Big Ten Volleyball Media Days. That's huge when you think of what those two teams are going to just continue to build the Big Ten, which is already an elite volleyball conference. Like, what is the potential of the Big Ten Conference when we look a few years down the road?
Yeah, you know, I think the one thing that stands out to me, and I might be wrong, and you guys are smarter than I am in this world, but if you think about the SEC in softball, don't they get 12 or 13 teams to the? I just think the more teams that you have, where the RPIs are crazy and you're beating each other up in the league, and you know, if we end up sending on a really good year, the Big Ten's going to send 8 or 9 teams to the tournament. No reason why there can't be 10, 11, 12. And the goal for a lot of these programs, you know, there's programs that are here today that haven't finished higher than 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten that have made a Final Four, that have done those things. And the beauty of the Big Ten, too, is in the first 2 rounds of the tournament, you know, I've been lucky enough to be part of 6 Final Fours. You don't play Big Ten teams in the first 2 rounds. So our car ride up this morning was, you know, spending time talking about, listen, you make the tournament, those first 2 rounds you're playing teams, and it's not SC, and it's not Nebraska, and it's not Wisconsin, and you look across the net, and as a group, you're pretty confident that you can compete and be in that situation. So I think it's great for all member institutions. I think they're historic programs. They've been fantastic for years. They're going to be good forever, and it's just great for the Big Ten as a whole.
Lincoln Area World Herald. But as a coach who's building a program, does that make your job that much tougher to get to that level of welcoming in those additional schools?
Yes and no. I think the job is tough, period. I mean, as I mentioned before, it's I love Indiana, and I knew the challenge that I had when I arrived, and knew it was going to take time and we had to build it the right way. But I also think that if you can finish 8th in the conference, you can make a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8. You just can. So, you know, the goal isn't to go, especially when you take over a program that had been struggling, the goal isn't to become a Final Four team. You know, there'll be people who are on this stage that are talking about their goal as a national championship. Our goal is, can we go from being just okay to pretty good to good consistently? Can you have a really good year and kind of break in? And then can you recruit the kind of student athletes year after year that are going to give you the opportunity to be in those matches and have a chance to win? You know, you're not going to out-coach people in the conference. You just aren't. And you're a great coach if you got great players. So much of it is about like sharing the vision of where we're headed. You know, and Cam's a great example. She's an Indiana kid who, you know, our job is to try to recruit the best players in the state and then build around it. And, you know, she understood that vision early, and she knew it was going to be a challenge. But the right kind of kids end up in your program. And although it takes some time to get everything shaken out, we feel unbelievably great about where we are right now.
Last question is going to come from the Zoom call. Cameron, this is for you, from Kyle Babcock at Sports Report Media. Growing up at Fishers, what's the sports rivalry with Purdue been like for you?
So in Fishers, we actually have a high school rivalry, which is Hamilton Southeastern versus Fishers. And so that is just like kind of IU versus Purdue just escalated. So I think that's been really cool to have like that rivalry within our town kind of escalate now to the universities. And I have friends that are at Purdue, friends that are at IU. And so then that's always just a battle. Like everybody's always just debating IU, Purdue. So that's kind of fun.
And with that, coach, players, thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.